Some storms are born in the sky, others in the hearts of those who survive them. The wind had teeth that night. It tore through the valley like a living thing, hungry and relentless, carrying snow that cut like shattered glass. Alara pressed one hand against the stone wall of the cottage, the other cradling the swell of her belly, and felt the child inside her kick against her ribs, a small, insistent reminder that she was not alone, even if she had been cast out to die alone. The cottage belonged to no one now. It had been abandoned years ago, when the old healer who lived here was dragged before the council and accused of treason. Alara had found it by accident, stumbling through the forest with bleeding feet and a broken heart, her mate's rejection still burning in her chest like swallowed fire. "You are not worthy to bear my child," he had said, his voice cold as iron. "Leave before dawn, or I will have you killed." She had left. She had walked until her legs gave out, until the snow began to fall, until she could no longer feel her fingers. And then she had seen the light, a single candle burning in the window of this forgotten place, as if someone had known she was coming. Inside, the fire was still warm. The shelves were lined with dried herbs and dusty bottles. And sitting in the chair by the hearth, wrapped in a cloak the color of smoke, was an old woman with silver hair and eyes like winter moons. "You're late," the woman said, not looking up from the flames. "I've been waiting 3 days." Ilara's knees buckled. She caught herself on the doorframe, gasping. "I don't understand. I didn't know this place existed." "The moon knows." The woman rose, slow and steady, and crossed the room. Her hands were warm when they touched Ilara's face, steadying her. "And so do I. My name is Marin. I was banished from these lands 20 years ago for speaking truths no one wanted to hear. Now the moon has sent you to me, and I will not turn you away." Ilara wanted to weep, but the tears had frozen somewhere deep inside her. "I have nothing to offer you." "You have life." Marin's gaze dropped to Ilara's belly, and something ancient flickered in her expression. "That is more than enough." The storm raged for 3 days. Marin tended to Ilara with the skill of someone who had delivered 100 children, who had sewn wounds and whispered prayers over the dying. She brewed teas that tasted of earth and starlight, rubbed salves into Ilara's swollen feet, and never once asked about the father. On the 3rd night, when the wind finally began to quiet, Ilara woke to find Marin standing at the window, staring out into the darkness. "They're coming," Marin said softly. Ilara's heart seized. "Who?" "The ones who cast you out, the ones who think you should have died in the snow." Marin turned, and her eyes were sad. "And the one who sent them?" Ilara pushed herself upright, her pulse hammering. "How do you know?" "Because I can hear the wolves." Marin moved to the door, her hand resting on the iron latch. "And because I know what it sounds like when a king realizes he's made a mistake." The howl came then, low and mournful, cutting through the silence like a blade. It was not the sound of a hunt. It was the sound of grief. Ilara's breath caught. She knew that voice. She had heard it every night in her dreams, even after he had thrown her away. Marin opened the door, and standing in the snow, his eyes burning gold in the moonlight, was the Alpha King himself. He looked like a man carved from stone and regret. King Aldrich stood at the edge of the clearing, his massive frame silhouetted against the pale glow of dawn. His dark hair was tangled with snow, his cloak torn and bloodied. Behind him, A dozen wolves waited in the shadows, their eyes reflecting the firelight from Marin's cottage. But it was his face that made Alara's heart fracture all over again. The hollow grief in his eyes, the way his mouth trembled as if he were holding back words that might shatter him. "Alara," he breathed, and it was not a command. It was a prayer. Marin stepped between them, her small frame suddenly immovable. "You have no claim here, King. This is sanctuary ground." Aldrich's gaze never left Alara. "I did not come to take her. I came to beg." The words hung in the frozen air like smoke. Alara pressed one hand to her belly, feeling the child shift beneath her palm, and something inside her cracked. "You told me to leave or die." "I know." His voice broke. "I know what I said. I know what I did. And I have spent every hour since that night wishing the moon would strike me down for it." "Then why are you here?" Her voice was steadier than she felt. "What could you possibly want from me now?" He took one step forward, then stopped, as if an invisible wall held him back. "Forgiveness, understanding, a chance to tell you the truth I was too afraid to speak." Marin's eyes narrowed. "And what truth would that be, King?" Aldrich's jaw tightened. "That I rejected her, not because she was unworthy, but because I was afraid she would be destroyed by what I am." Alara's breath hitched. "What you are. Cursed." The word fell from his lips like a stone into still water. "My bloodline has been poisoned for 3 generations. Every child born to an alpha king of my line has died before their first breath. I rejected you because I could not bear to watch you suffer that fate." The fire crackled. The wolves in the shadows shifted, uneasy. Marin's expression softened, just barely. "And yet you come now, when the child already grows within her." "Because I was wrong." Aldrich's voice was raw. "Because 3 nights ago, the moon spoke to me in a dream. She showed me a vision of a woman with silver light in her hands, healing what I thought could never be healed. And when I woke, I knew it was her." His eyes found Alara's again, desperate and blazing. "You are not just an Omega, Alara. You are a pathfinder. The curse that has haunted my bloodline for generations. You have the power to break it." Alara's knees went weak. Marin caught her, steadying her with surprising strength. "That's impossible," Alara whispered. "I have no power. I'm nothing." "You are everything." Aldrich's voice cracked. "And I was too blind to see it until I had already destroyed us both." Marin looked between them, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, quiet and firm. "If you truly wish to make amends, King, then you will prove it, not with words, but with action." Aldrich dropped to one knee in the snow, his head bowed. "Tell me what you need, and I will do it." Marin's lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. "There is an enemy coming for us. A rival pack that knows Alara carries your child, and they will stop at nothing to take her life before the babe is born. If you wish to earn her trust again, you will stand between her and the wolves that hunt her." Aldrich lifted his head, and his eyes were molten gold. "I will burn the world before I let them touch her." Alara's heart thundered in her chest. The child inside her kicked again, harder this time, as if responding to the vow. And in that moment she understood. Redemption was not a gift. It was a battle. The enemy arrived at dusk, when the sky was the color of old blood. Alara stood at the window, watching as shadows moved between the trees. Too many to count, too coordinated to be random. Maren had given her a knife, small and silver, and told her to keep it close. But Alara knew that if they breached the cottage, a blade would not save her. Aldrich stood outside, alone, his wolves flanking him in a crescent formation. He had refused to bring his full guard, saying that this was his burden to bear, not theirs. Maren had called him a fool. Alara had said nothing, because she could not find the words for what she felt when she looked at him. This broken king who had thrown her away and then crawled back through the snow to beg for her forgiveness. The first wolf stepped into the clearing. It was massive, its fur black as pitch, its eyes burning red. Behind it, a dozen more emerged, their growls low and hungry. And then, from the darkness, a man stepped forward. He was tall and lean, with scars across his face and a smile that made Alara's skin crawl. "Aldrich," the man said, his voice mocking. "I heard you'd lost your mind. I didn't believe it until now." Aldrich's voice was ice. "Leave, Kale. This doesn't concern you." Kale laughed, sharp and cruel. "Doesn't concern me? You rejected your mate, cast her out to die, and now you stand here pretending to be her hero? You're pathetic. I will not warn you again, and I will not leave without her." Kale's gaze shifted to the cottage, to the window where Alara stood. "That child she carries is an abomination. Your bloodline is cursed, Aldrich. Everyone knows it. The only mercy you can offer her now is a swift death." Alara's hand tightened on the knife. The child inside her kicked, hard and insistent, as if it could sense the danger. Aldrich's voice dropped to a growl. "You will not touch her." "Then stop me." Kale shifted. His body twisted and elongated, bones cracking and reforming, until a massive black wolf stood where the man had been. The pack behind him surged forward, teeth bared, hunger in their eyes. Aldrich did not hesitate. He shifted in a blur of gold and fury, his wolf form towering over the others, and crashed into Kale with the force of an avalanche. The clearing erupted into chaos. Wolves tore into each other, blood staining the snow, howls splitting the night. Aldrich fought like a man possessed, his jaws closing around throats, his claws ripping through flesh. But there were too many. For every wolf he felled, two more took its place. Inside the cottage, Maren gripped Alara's arm. "We need to move, now." "I can't leave him," Alara whispered, her eyes locked on the battle. "If you stay, you both die." Alara turned, her heart breaking. "Then what do we do?" Maren's expression was grim. "We pray the moon is watching." Outside, Aldrich staggered. A wolf had clamped onto his hind leg, dragging him down. Kale loomed over him, teeth bared, ready to deliver the killing blow. And then Alara felt it. A surge of heat in her chest, spreading through her veins like molten silver. Her hands began to glow, faint at first, then brighter, until the light was blinding. Maren's eyes widened. The Pathfinder gift. It's waking. Alara didn't understand. She only knew that she had to act. She threw open the door and stepped into the snow, her hands raised, the light pouring from her like a river. The wolves froze. Kale recoiled, snarling, and Aldrich, bleeding and broken, looked at her with something like awe. "Alara," he breathed, "what are you?" She didn't answer. She only walked forward, the light growing stronger with every step, until it surrounded them all like a protective flame. "And now, I invite you to leave a trace of your presence in the comments. Tell us where in the world you're watching from and the exact hour you hear this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments of the night they find you. The light did not burn. It cleansed. Kale's wolves scattered, whimpering, their eyes wide with terror. The black wolf himself staggered backward, his red eyes fixed on Ilara as if she were something incomprehensible, a force of nature he had not anticipated. Ilara stood in the center of the clearing, her hands still glowing, her heart hammering in her chest. She did not understand what was happening, only that the light had come from somewhere deep inside her, summoned by desperation and something older than fear. Aldrich shifted back into his human form, blood streaking his chest and arms, and dropped to his knees before her. His voice was hoarse. "Ilara, stop. You're burning yourself out." She looked down at her hands. The light was fading now, flickering like a dying candle. Her legs trembled. The child inside her kicked weakly, and she felt a sudden wave of exhaustion crash over her. Maren appeared at her side, catching her before she fell. "Inside, now." Kyle's voice cut through the night, sharp and venomous. "This changes nothing, Aldrich. She's an anomaly, a freak. And when the council hears about this, they'll hunt her down and burn her alive." Aldrich rose, his eyes blazing. "Then let them try. I will stand between her and every wolf in this kingdom if I must." "You're a fool," Kyle spat. "You think love will save you? You think it will break your curse? You're already dead, King. You just don't know it yet." Aldrich took one step forward, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "Leave, before I tear your throat out." Kale held his gaze for a long moment, then shifted back into his wolf form and disappeared into the trees, his pack following like shadows swallowed by the dark. The clearing fell silent. Aldrich turned back to the cottage, his expression raw with something Ilara could not name. When he reached the door, Maren blocked his path. "She needs rest," Maren said firmly. "Not your guilt." "I know." His voice cracked. "But I need to see that she's alive." Maren studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. 5 minutes, no more. Inside, Ilara sat by the fire, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that Maren had pressed into her palms. She did not look up when Aldrich entered, but she felt his presence like heat against her skin. He knelt beside her, careful not to touch her. "Ilara, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to—" "To what?" Her voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath it. "To discover I'm not as powerless as you thought? To realize that the woman you threw away might have been the answer all along?" He flinched as if she'd struck him. "You have every right to hate me." "I don't hate you." She finally looked at him, and the pain in her eyes was almost unbearable. "I hate what you did. I hate that you were too afraid to trust me, to tell me the truth. But I don't hate you, Aldrich, and that's the worst part." His jaw tightened. "Then tell me what I can do. Tell me how to fix this." "You can't fix it." She set the cup down, her hands trembling. "What's broken between us can't be mended with words or vows. It has to be earned." "Then I'll earn it." His voice was fierce. "Every day, every moment, for the rest of my life, if that's what it takes." She placed one hand on her belly, feeling the child stir. "It's not just about me anymore, Aldrich. This child, our child, deserves a father who won't run when things become difficult, who won't cast them aside the moment fear whispers in his ear." He reached out, hesitating, then gently placed his hand over hers. The warmth of his palm seeped through her skin, and for a moment she let herself imagine what it might feel like if he stayed, if he proved himself worthy. I will be that father, he said softly. I swear it on my soul. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind began to rise again, carrying with it the scent of snow and something darker, something that smelled like war. Maren appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. We have a problem. Aldrich stood immediately. What is it? Cale didn't retreat because he was afraid. He retreated to gather reinforcements. She crossed to the window, her eyes scanning the darkness. By dawn, this place will be surrounded, and when they come, they won't stop until Alara and the child are dead. Alara's breath caught. Then what do we do? Maren turned, her gaze sharp. We run. There's a temple 3 days north, hidden in the mountains. It's protected by the old laws, sanctuary ground that even kings cannot violate. If we can reach it before they catch us, you'll be safe. Aldrich's expression hardened. Then we leave tonight. Not we, Maren said. You. He stared at her. I'm not leaving her. You will, Maren said calmly, because if you come with us, they'll track you. Your scent, your presence, it will lead them straight to her. The only way she survives is if you draw them away. The silence that followed was suffocating. Alara's voice broke it, soft and certain. She's right. Aldrich's head snapped toward her. No, I just found you again. I'm not losing you. You won't lose me. She stood, crossing to him, and placed one hand on his chest. But if you stay, we all die. And I need you to live, Aldrich. I need you to fight so that when this is over, you can come back to us. His eyes searched hers, desperate. What if I can't find you? You will. She pressed her palm over his heart, feeling it thunder beneath her touch. Because the moon brought us together once, she'll do it again. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her, and for a moment they stood together in the firelight, two broken souls clinging to each other like drowning swimmers. Then Maren cleared her throat. Dawn is 3 hours away. If you're going to run, King, run now! Aldrich pulled back, his hands cupping Alara's face. I will find you. I swear it. I know, she whispered. He kissed her forehead, slow and reverent, then turned and walked out into the night. Alara watched him go, her hand resting on her belly, and felt the child kick once, strong and steady, as if it knew its father would return. The journey north was a nightmare woven from snow and silence. Maren moved through the forest like a ghost, her steps soundless, her breathing steady. Alara followed, her body heavy with exhaustion and the weight of the child she carried. Every step was agony. Every breath felt like swallowing ice. But she did not stop. She could not. Behind them, in the distance, she could hear the howls, Kyle's pack hunting them through the trees. And somewhere farther still, she heard another sound. Aldrich's wolves, leading the enemy away, drawing them toward the eastern border where the rivers ran fast and deadly. He's keeping his word, Maren murmured, glancing back at her. Leading them into the gorge. If he's lucky, half of them will drown. Alara's chest tightened. And if he's not lucky? Maren did not answer. They walked for 2 days without rest. Maren found shelter in caves and hollow trees, places where the wind could not reach them. She brewed teas from melted snow and bitter roots, fed Alara strips of dried meat, and spoke little. On the 3rd morning, they reached the base of the mountain. The temple loomed above them, carved into the cliffside like a wound in the stone. It was ancient, older than the kingdom itself, its entrance flanked by statues of wolves with eyes made of moonstone. The air around it hummed with something Ilara could not name. Power, perhaps, or memory. "This is it," Maren said softly. "Once we cross the threshold, we're under the protection of the old laws. No wolf can touch you here." Ilara stared at the temple, her heart pounding. "And if they try? Then the moon herself will strike them down." They climbed the stone steps slowly, Ilara's legs trembling with every movement. The child inside her had grown quiet, as if it too sensed the weight of this place. At the top of the stairs, a woman waited. She was tall and pale, her hair the color of starlight, her eyes silver as the moon. She wore robes that seemed to shimmer in the light, and when she spoke, her voice was like wind through winter branches. "You are expected, Pathfinder." Ilara froze. "How do you know what I am?" The woman smiled faintly. "Because I am the one who called you here." Maren bowed her head. "High Priestess?" The priestess turned her gaze to Ilara, and it felt like being seen all the way through. Every wound, every fear, every desperate hope laid bare. "You carry a child cursed by bloodline and blessed by destiny," the priestess said, "and you have been chosen to break what 3 generations of kings could not." Ilara's voice trembled. "I don't know how." "You will learn." The priestess stepped aside, gesturing toward the entrance. "Come. There is much to prepare and little time." Inside, the temple was breathtaking. Columns of white stone rose toward a ceiling painted with constellations. Moonlight poured through stained glass windows, casting silver patterns across the floor. And at the center of the room stood an altar carved from obsidian, with a single silver chalice resting upon it. "The ritual of unbinding," the priestess said, crossing to the altar. "It requires 3 things: the blood of the cursed, the light of the Pathfinder, and a choice made in love, not duty." Ilara's breath hitched. "A choice?" The curse was born from a king's refusal to choose his heart over his crown. It can only be broken by a king who does the opposite. The priestess turned, her expression grave. "When the time comes, Aldrich will have to choose between his kingdom and you. And whatever he chooses will determine the fate of your child." Ilara's hand flew to her belly, protective and fierce. What if he chooses wrong? Then the curse remains, and the child dies with its first breath. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Maren stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Then we make sure he chooses right." The priestess inclined her head. "That is why you are here, Elder, to guide them both through what comes next." A howl echoed in the distance, close, too close. The priestess's expression darkened. "They've found you." Ilara's heart seized. "But you said—" "The old laws protect this temple, but they do not protect the mountain." The priestess moved to the window, her gaze fixed on the forest below. "They cannot enter, but they can wait, and they will wait until you are forced to leave or until Aldrich arrives to claim you." "Then we fight," Maren said grimly. "No." The priestess turned, her eyes blazing with quiet authority. "You prepare, because when Aldrich comes, and he will come, the true battle begins." Ilara sank onto a stone bench, her body trembling. The child kicked, hard and insistent, and she closed her eyes, whispering a prayer to the moon. "Hold on," she murmured, her hand pressed to her belly. "Just hold on a little longer." Outside, the wolves gathered, their eyes glowing in the darkness. And somewhere in the distance, a single howl rose, deeper, stronger, unmistakable. Aldrich was coming. He arrived at midnight, bloodied and unbroken. Ilara stood at the temple entrance, her heart in her throat, and watched as Aldrich emerged from the forest. His wolves flanked him, fewer now than before. Half his guard had fallen in the gorge, drawing Kale's pack into the raging waters. But he was alive. His eyes found hers across the distance, and something in her chest shattered and healed all at once. Ilara, he breathed, and it was a benediction, but he did not cross the threshold. He stopped at the base of the stairs, his gaze lifting to the priestess who stood beside Ilara. "I seek sanctuary," he said, his voice raw, "for her, for our child." The priestess's expression was unreadable. Sanctuary is not given to kings who abandon their mates. Aldrich flinched, but he did not look away. "Then I will earn it. Tell me what you require, and I will do it." A choice. The priestess descended the stairs slowly, her robes trailing behind her like moonlight. "The curse that plagues your bloodline was born from a king who chose his crown over his heart. To break it, you must choose differently. Then I choose her." His voice was fierce, absolute. "I choose Ilara. I choose our child. I renounce my throne, my title, my kingdom, all of it, if that is what it takes." The priestess stopped before him, her silver eyes piercing. "And if I told you that renouncing your throne would plunge your kingdom into war, that thousands would die without a king to lead them?" Aldrich's jaw tightened. "Then I would carry that burden for the rest of my life, but I will not sacrifice her again." Ilara's breath caught. The child inside her kicked, as if responding to his words. The priestess studied him for a long moment, then turned to Ilara. "And you, Pathfinder, what do you choose?" Ilara descended the stairs, her legs trembling, until she stood before Aldrich. She looked into his eyes, those golden, desperate eyes, and saw everything he was offering her, everything he was willing to destroy for her sake. "I don't want you to renounce your throne," she said softly. His expression crumbled. "Ilara, because I don't need you to be less than you are to love me." She placed one hand on his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath her palm. "I need you to be both, a king and a mate, a leader and a father, and I need you to believe that you can be those things without choosing one over the other." "The curse will break," the priestess interrupted, her voice sharp, "when you understand that love and duty are not enemies. They are two sides of the same coin. A king who rules without love becomes a tyrant. A mate who loves without purpose becomes a ghost. You must be both, Aldrich, whole, or the curse will consume you." Aldrich stared at her, then at Ilara, his expression raw with something that looked like hope. "Then teach me," he said hoarsely. "Show me how." The priestess gestured toward the temple. "Come, both of you. The ritual begins now." Inside, the altar glowed with silver light. The chalice had been filled with water from the sacred springs, and around it, candles burned in a perfect circle. "The unbinding requires 3 elements," the priestess said, circling the altar. "The blood of the cursed, to acknowledge the wound, the light of the Pathfinder, to heal it, and a vow spoken in truth, to seal the bond." She handed Aldrich a blade, small, silver, ancient. "Your blood, king." Aldrich did not hesitate. He drew the blade across his palm, letting the blood drip into the chalice. The water turned red, then silver, then clear again. The priestess turned to Alara. "Your light, Pathfinder." Alara stepped forward, her hands trembling. She did not know how to summon the light. It had come to her once before in desperation, but she did not know if she could call it again. "Close your eyes," the priestess murmured, "and remember why you fight." Alara closed her eyes. She thought of the child inside her, of the kicks and flutters that reminded her she was not alone. She thought of Aldrich, bloodied and broken, crawling back through the snow to beg for her forgiveness. She thought of the life they could have, if they survived this. And the light came. It poured from her hands like liquid silver, filling the chalice until it overflowed, spilling across the altar in rivers of luminescence. The priestess's voice rang out, powerful and clear. "Now, the vow. Speak your truth, both of you, and let the moon bear witness." Aldrich took Alara's hands, his grip steady despite the blood still dripping from his palm. "I vow to love you without fear, to choose you without hesitation, to be the king my people need and the mate you deserve. I will not run, I will not hide, and I will not let this curse take one more thing from us." Alara's voice shook, but she did not falter. "I vow to stand beside you, not behind you, to heal what is broken and fight for what is ours. I will not be cast aside, I will not be silenced, and I will not let fear win." The light surged, blinding and beautiful, and the chalice shattered. The sound echoed through the temple like a scream, and then silence. When Alara opened her eyes, the curse was gone. She could feel it, the absence of that dark, coiling thing that had lingered at the edges of her awareness. The child inside her kicked, strong and insistent, as if celebrating. Aldrich pulled her into his arms, his face buried in her hair, and she felt him tremble. "It's over," she whispered. "No," he said softly. "It's just beginning." Outside, the wolves began to howl, not in anger, but in triumph, like if you believe rejection can become destiny. The kingdom did not welcome them with open arms. When Aldrich and Alara descended from the mountain, the wolves that had once served Kale were waiting, not to fight, but to kneel. They had witnessed the breaking of the curse, felt the shift in the air when the moon's blessing settled over their king and his mate. And they knew, instinctively, that defying them now would be defying the will of the goddess herself. But the court was a different matter. The council hall was a place of cold stone and colder hearts. The elders sat in their high-backed chairs, their expressions ranging from skepticism to outright hostility. At the head of the table, the Grand Elder, a man with silver hair and a face like carved granite, fixed Aldrich with a look that could have cut glass. "You bring shame to this throne," the Grand Elder said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You rejected your mate, cast her out to die, and now you return with her, claiming the curse is broken. Do you expect us to simply accept this?" Aldrich stood tall, his hand clasped with Alara's. "I expect you to honor the moon's will. The curse that has plagued our bloodline for 3 generations is gone. The Pathfinder broke it, and I will not apologize for choosing love over fear." "Love?" the Grand Elder scoffed. "You speak of love as if it is a virtue. But you are a king, Aldrich. Your duty is to the kingdom, not to a woman who saved us all." Alara's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. She stepped forward, her chin lifted, her eyes blazing. "I am not asking for your approval. I am not asking for your acceptance. But I will not stand here and listen to you diminish what we have fought for." The Grand Elder's eyes narrowed. You dare speak to this council? I dare because I have earned it. She placed one hand on her belly, and the child inside her kicked, as if agreeing. I survived your king's rejection. I walked through the storm while you sat safe in your halls, and I broke a curse that none of you had the courage to face. Silence fell. One of the younger council members, a woman with dark hair and sharp eyes, leaned forward. If the curse is truly broken, then prove it. Let the child be born. If it lives past its first breath, we will believe you. Aldrich's jaw tightened. You would gamble with my child's life? We gamble with the kingdom's future, the Grand Elder said coldly. If the curse is not broken and the child dies, then you will have failed us all. Alara's hand tightened in Aldrich's. Then we have nothing to fear, because our child will live. The Grand Elder studied her for a long moment, then inclined his head. Very well. You have 3 months. If the child survives, we will recognize your union. If it does not. He let the sentence hang, unfinished but understood. Aldrich and Alara left the council hall in silence. Outside, the night was cold and clear, the moon hanging low over the mountains. They want us to fail, Alara said quietly. I know. Aldrich pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. But they will not have that satisfaction. What if they're right? Her voice cracked. What if the curse isn't truly broken? What if... It is broken. He cupped her face, his eyes fierce. I felt it shatter, Alara. I felt the weight lift, and I will not let fear poison what we've built. She leaned into him, breathing in the scent of snow and cedar, and let herself believe him. The months that followed were a strange blend of peace and tension. Aldrich ruled with a newfound confidence, his decisions tempered by compassion rather than fear. Alara took her place at his side, not as a silent ornament, but as an equal. She advised him on matters of justice, healed the sick with her Pathfinder gifts, and slowly, grudgingly, earned the respect of the people. But the council watched, waiting, hoping for failure. When the first contractions came, Alara was alone in the royal chambers, her hands gripping the bedpost as pain tore through her. Marin appeared within moments, her face calm and steady. Breathe, child. This is the easy part. Easy? Alara gasped, compared to what comes after. Marin helped her onto the bed, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. Aldrich? He's with the council. I sent word. The labor lasted through the night. Alara had never known pain like this, sharp and relentless, a fire that consumed her from the inside out. But through it all, she held on to one thought. The child would live. The curse was broken. It had to be. When Aldrich finally burst through the door, his face pale with fear, Marin barked at him to stay back. You'll only distract her. But Alara reached for him, her voice hoarse. Stay, please. He crossed to her, taking her hand, and she gripped it so hard she thought she might break his bones. I'm here, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. And then, with a final scream that seemed to tear the world in half, the child was born. The room fell silent. Marin lifted the baby, small, red, covered in blood, and for one terrible, agonizing moment, it did not move. Alara's heart stopped, and then the child took its first breath. A cry, loud, furious, alive, filled the chamber. Marin's expression softened into something like awe. It's a girl. Alara sobbed, her body shaking with relief and joy. Aldrich pressed his forehead to hers, his own eyes wet with tears. "You did it," he whispered. "She's alive." Marin wrapped the baby in a soft blanket and placed her in Alara's arms. The child stared up at her with eyes the color of amber and moonlight, and Alara felt something inside her settle, a certainty, deep and unshakable. "Her name is Luna," Alara said softly. Aldrich kissed her temple. Luna. Perfect. Outside, the moon shone brighter than it had in years, and in the council hall, the Grand Elder sat in silence, knowing he had been proven wrong. The kingdom celebrated for 7 days. Banners of silver and gold hung from every tower. Fires burned in the courtyards, and the scent of roasted meat and honey cakes filled the air. The people danced and sang, their voices rising toward the stars, and for the first time in generations, there was hope in the land, but not everyone celebrated. Kyle watched from the shadows, his eyes burning with hatred. He had survived the gorge, clawed his way out of the freezing water, and dragged himself back to the kingdom with one purpose: revenge. He had lost everything because of Aldrich, his pack, his status, his pride, and now he would take everything from the king in return. On the 8th night, when the festivities had finally quieted, Kyle struck. He moved through the castle like a ghost, slipping past guards and servants, until he reached the royal chambers. Inside, Alara slept with Luna cradled against her chest, the child's tiny hand curled around her mother's finger. Kyle's hand closed around the hilt of his blade, but before he could move, a voice stopped him cold. "I wouldn't." Aldrich stepped out of the shadows, his eyes glowing gold in the darkness. He was unarmed, but he did not need weapons. His presence alone was a threat. Kyle snarled. "You should have killed me when you had the chance." "I gave you mercy," Aldrich said quietly. "And this is how you repay it?" "Mercy?" Kyle spat. "You humiliated me, destroyed me." "And for what? For her?" He gestured toward Alara with disgust. "She's nothing, a broken omega with delusions of grandeur." Aldrich's voice dropped to a growl. "She is everything, and if you take one more step toward her, I will tear you apart." Kyle lunged. The fight was brutal and swift. Aldrich moved with the precision of a king who had been trained to kill since childhood. He caught Kale's wrist, twisted, and the blade clattered to the floor. Then he slammed Kale against the wall, his hand around the other man's throat. "You had a choice," Aldrich said, his voice cold. "You could have walked away, built a new life, but you chose this." Kyle's lips twisted into a sneer. "Then finish it." Aldrich held his gaze for a long moment, and then he let go. Kale collapsed to the floor, gasping. "Get out of my kingdom," Aldrich said quietly. "And if I ever see you again, I will not be so kind." Kale staggered to his feet, his expression twisted with rage and humiliation. He spat at Aldrich's feet, then disappeared into the darkness. Alara stirred, her eyes opening. "Aldrich?" He crossed to her, his expression softening. "It's over. Go back to sleep." She looked at him for a long moment, then down at Luna, who slept peacefully in her arms. "Will he come back?" "No." Aldrich sat beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "He's broken, and broken things do not return." Alara leaned into him, and together they watched their daughter sleep, the moonlight spilling through the window like a benediction. The weeks that followed were quieter. Aldrich ruled with wisdom and compassion, and Alara stood beside him, her Pathfinder gifts becoming a source of healing for the kingdom. Luna grew strong and healthy, her laughter a sound that seemed to chase away the shadows. But Alara could not shake the feeling that something was coming, something darker than Kale, more dangerous than the curse. One night, as she stood at the window with Luna in her arms, she felt it, a ripple in the air, a shift in the wind. Maren appeared beside her, her expression grave. "You feel it too." "What is it?" Alara whispered. "A reckoning." Maren's eyes were distant. "The curse is broken, but the wound remains, and wounds, if left untended, fester." Alara's grip tightened on Luna. "What do we do?" "We prepare." Maren turned, her gaze sharp. "Because the moon has given you a gift, Pathfinder. But every gift comes with a price." Outside, the stars flickered, and somewhere in the distance a wolf howled, a sound that was neither greeting nor warning, but something in between. The reckoning came on the night of the blood moon. The sky turned crimson, the color of old wounds and new beginnings, and the air grew thick with a power that made even the strongest wolves uneasy. Alara stood on the castle balcony, Luna sleeping in her arms, and watched as the moon rose, impossibly large, impossibly red. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's a warning," Maren said, appearing beside her. "The blood moon marks the end of one era and the beginning of another. What you choose tonight will shape the future of this kingdom." Alara turned to her, confusion flickering in her eyes. "What choice? The curse is broken. Luna is alive. What more is there?" "Everything." Maren's expression was grave. "The curse was only a symptom, Alara. The true disease runs deeper, a bloodline built on fear, a kingdom ruled by the strong at the expense of the weak. The moon is asking you to do more than survive. She's asking you to transform." Before Alara could respond, a commotion erupted below. Wolves poured into the courtyard, their eyes wide with panic. And at the center of the chaos stood Aldrich, his expression dark. "What's happening?" Alara called down. Aldrich looked up, his voice tight. "The Grand Elder is dead, murdered in his chambers, and the council is demanding justice." Alara's blood ran cold. "Kale?" "No." Aldrich's jaw tightened. "One of our own, a wolf from the inner guard, someone we trusted." Maren's voice was quiet beside her. "And so it begins." The trial was held in the great hall, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on the stone walls. The accused wolf, a young guard named Ronan, stood in chains, his face pale but defiant. "I did it," he said, his voice steady, "and I would do it again." The room erupted in outrage. Aldrich raised a hand, and silence fell. "Why?" Aldrich's voice was deadly calm. Ronan lifted his chin. "Because he deserved it. The Grand Elder and his council, they rule through fear and control. They punish the weak and reward the cruel. I killed him to send a message. That era is over." "You killed him," Aldrich said slowly, "to send a message." "Yes." Ronan's eyes blazed. "And if you are truly the king you claim to be, you will see that I'm right. This kingdom needs change. Not mercy for murderers like me. Change in how we rule, how we live, how we treat each other." The hall fell silent. Alara stepped forward, Luna still in her arms. "He's right." Aldrich's head snapped toward her. "Alara, not about the murder," she said quickly, "but about the kingdom. We broke the curse, Aldrich. We healed the bloodline. But if we don't heal the kingdom itself, if we don't change the systems that breed fear and cruelty, then we've accomplished nothing." Aldrich stared at her, his expression torn. "What would you have me do?" he asked quietly. Pardon him? No. Alara's voice was firm. Justice must be served, but justice is not the same as vengeance. Ronan will face the consequences of his actions, but we will also dismantle the council that drove him to this. We will rebuild from the ground up with compassion as our foundation. The room stirred. Some wolves nodded. Others looked skeptical. Aldrich turned to Ronan. You will be exiled, not executed, but removed from this kingdom for the rest of your life. And in your absence, we will do what you could not. We will build something better. Ronan's expression flickered with something like relief. Thank you. Don't thank me, Aldrich said coldly. Thank her. She's the one who saved your life. As the guards led Ronan away, Aldrich turned to the assembled wolves. From this day forward, the old council is dissolved. We will form a new one chosen not by birthright or fear, but by merit and compassion. And anyone who stands in the way of this change will answer to me. The hall erupted in murmurs, but no one dared challenge him. Later, on the balcony, Alara and Aldrich stood together under the blood moon. Luna slept peacefully between them, her tiny hand curled around Aldrich's finger. Do you think it will work? Alara asked softly. I don't know. Aldrich's voice was honest. But I know that we have to try, for her. He looked down at Luna, his expression tender. For all of them. Alara leaned against him, and together they watched as the moon began to fade, the crimson giving way to silver. We survived the curse, she whispered. And now we build the future, he replied. Below them, the kingdom stirred, uncertain, hopeful, alive. And in the distance, the wolves began to howl, not in mourning or anger, but in celebration. Because the old era was over, and the new one had just begun. If your heart beat alongside ours, like comment and subscribe. Because every soul that joins our moon keeps the flame of redemption alive.